Hello, welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people. I'm hypersensitive to the fact that my room is emptier than it appears, and my voice might be a little echoey. So please bear with me. My name is KristaLyn. I'm an astrologer, and this is a closed space. There are no stars here. So.
Also, my name is Emily, and I'm currently in a hotel room, and we're about to leave after we record this. And I don't have my microphone with me today. So if it also sounds funky, that's the other half of that, or if there's background noise. We're just gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. And if you're seeing this on the YouTube, this thing that I'm leaning against, it looks like a couch, but actually it's just a mattress that they put a cover on with some pillows on the side to make it look like a couch so that you could sleep more people in the room, which I think is actually both brilliant and weird.
That's super clever. I think I'm going to chalk that up to clever. It's like a day bed.
Legit mattress.
Yeah. I love that. And of course, like Mercury is direct now. So we're all like traveling and changing and moving, if you're in my case. And there's a lot of transition happening now that this is moving. Well, now that Mercury is moving forward, but also we're feeling the impending forward motion of two heavy players, I'm going to say, in the sky. This week, Pluto will be going direct on the 8th. And then later this month, Saturn will be going direct. And both of them are going to be now in the long haul towards transitioning into an entirely different sign. So Pluto is direct until Pluto gets into Aquarius. Saturn will be direct until Saturn gets into Pisces. And so we're heading towards this whole like new stuff happening, societal and transpersonal planets saying, hey, new themes, new us by spring, get ready.
I'm so excited. Yeah. Saturn has been retrograding over my Saturn return, basically, and I am so fucking done with it. It needs to go.
Yeah. Pluto has been conjunct my natal Saturn, and transiting Saturn has been square my natal Pluto. Saturn and Pluto are both the planets of death. So they have not been treating me kindly, as Mercury has been retrograde in my 12th house of unseen enemies. It's been quite the transcendent and activating experience, but I promise to everybody I'm all right. So
do you have a quintessential, this is what happened during Mercury retrograde experience that you would like to share?
I have a quintessential, my God, what didn't happen during Mercury retrograde experience? So I will share that during this Mercury retrograde, Uranus is also retrograde and applying very tightly back to my sun. And so this decision I made back in May to move away from where I currently am into a new location has been revised in very radical ways. So Mercury, of course, being the traveler, like the destination has changed, particularly during this retrograde. And Uranus has thrown even further curveballs into the nature of what it looks like to move. So of course, the archetype has been fully there. And when I tried to say it's going to be exactly this, I was wrong, because Uranus does that. Uranus is the, haha, you thought you knew me, but you don't kind of energy. And Mercury is right there with him on that. So I think that's been my most quintessential. But again, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, the stereotypical Mercury retrograde moment happening in the 12th of unseen enemies was getting pulled over for a traffic ticket by by an officer that I did not see. And so that is, again, just your Mad Lib fill in for what a Mercury retrograde in that house would look like. Yeah. And now Mercury is in the same house as my midheaven point. So I am getting new invitations and new considerations. I'm revising my talk for Astromagia, making sure it is ready. So I spent a lot of time over Mercury retrograde doing practice presentations for career stuff.
How about you? All very quintessential. Yeah.
Yeah.
This, for whatever reason, this particular Mercury retrograde was very themed around me breaking things or getting hurt.
It's in your first house. Weird. Yeah, it was your first house and then,
well, okay. When it was in Libra, let me start there. When it was in Libra, it was a lot of communication stuff. And then the second it moved into Virgo, it was a lot of breaking things. So, like, repeatedly. So I shared my coffee cup story where the coffee cup fell and shattered. And so that was one of them. Just in the last 2 days of the retrograde, I have a huge blood blister on my hand right now. Like, it's horrible. I pinched. We have pine nuts here. Let me just start there. We have pine nuts here. They fall from the sky. And it's a food source that I refuse to let go to waste. Pine nuts are fucking expensive. So we collect them. And so I was collecting them and I was cracking them open and I pinched myself like gnarly with the pliers, which was great. And then right as Mercury, like the last day, we were at this hotel that we're at basically now, and the toilet stopped working completely. Like it wouldn't fill up the basin, and we were like messing with it, and we like called them, and they're like, yeah, we'll send a maintenance person out in about an hour. In that hour, Mercury stationed direct, and the toilet started working again, which I thought was hilarious. Just really, really funny. And last right during the last final like minutes of Mercury retrograde, I kicked a lantern and cut open my toe. Really gnarly. And it didn't hurt, but it bled really, really bad. And I was at a wedding venue setting up for a wedding. And so I'm like hobbling around with my flip-flop full of blood, like trying to like not bleed on all of the wedding stuff.
Yikes.
Basically, which was very mercurial. Like you're not really hurt, but it's gonna be inconvenient as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Happen.
Yeah.
So those were my quintessential experiences for this retrograde.
Yeah, that happened to me at my brother's wedding. I like bit it in the parking lot on the like walking into bridesmaids gown fittings. And so I had to like try on these dresses and not let the blood of my knees and my shin get onto these sample dresses. It's not always glamorous when Mercury does things in Venusian signs or even in their own sign.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what was going on at that point. That was years ago, but
But so, and I was wearing open-toed shoes, and I have this like band-aid over my toe. And the lady who was like giving me the first aid kit at the venue was just like, I hope you're not wearing open-toed shoes. And I was like, oh, yes, I am. Of course.
About that.
Fine, I don't care. But it's just really funny.
We need steel-toed high heels.
Right. I wore flats because one, I'm really tall, which people don't anticipate from me, I guess, but I'm tall. Yeah. And two, I don't like heels. I can't walk in them, and I have the coordination of a baby bird. So
I like that. That works. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our last full moon before we enter into eclipse season, and in the Patreon this week, we got a vote for doing an astrology based episode, like a really astrology focused episode. So we thought that it would be a really cool idea to not only talk about, of course, that full moon and what's going on around that, because we always give you those updates, but also talk about what to do to prepare for this eclipse season, since that is a very astrology heavy time for all of us, and kind of how to call back to last eclipse season and bring that energy in and focus for ahead, so it doesn't smack you in the face so much.
Yeah. And this eclipse season is coming with, again, these poignant moments where planets are, right around the same time, 5 days in the middle of eclipse season, because it will be 5 days after the first eclipse, and eclipses come in pairs because it's a new moon and a full moon. So right after the new moon partial solar eclipse that we're getting at the end of this month on October 25th, we will have we will have Mars in Mercury's sign of Gemini, stationing retrograde and just sitting there for quite a while.
Love that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I apologize, Emily. And it's so not mad. Mars has not been kind, as Mars is, typically not. But I've noticed even in my life, and it's not even an angular position for me, it's been showing up in very 8th housey themes. So astrology lingo here, 8th house is many things like inheritances. It can represent things surrounding death, which would be like inheritances, but it really is the other people's resources kind of thing. If you view it as similar to your second house, it is the second house from the other person in your life. So if you are you, represented by the first house, an other person, a partner in your life, would be represented by the exact opposite in the 7th house. The 8th house is the second from that person. That is their resources as compared to your second house, which is your resources. So hopefully that's, pretty clear about how house kind of things work. So if you're someone with Taurus and Scorpio in the 2nd to 8th, or in your 1st to 7th house axis, one or the other, you will be experiencing this in probably the 2nd or 8th or 12th or 6th house axis in your chart. So find Gemini in your chart and you'll see where this is happening. And you'll notice that for about a month now, there's been a lot just piling on in an overwhelming amount that is just stuff that might seem out of your realm of influence, but things that do affect you. And so if you're feeling that, just know that might slow down soon. So for those of us, especially if you're born at night, I'm actually kind of looking forward to a retrograde, and there are reasons to look forward to retrogrades. I'm looking forward to it this time because it'll give me a chance to see what has been piled up, kind of like laundry in the middle of the floor, and to sort through it. And, that's something that you can do to use this time, especially since we're between eclipses, which is going to be a lot of out of your control stuff. Of all the things in astrology, the eclipses are very much the, don't touch it, it's hot kind of thing. It's the pot boiling on the stove and you just have to let it boil, which is probably very apt for the combination with Mars doing his thing in Gemini. So
I'm not excited. I appreciate that you are, though.
Yeah, I'm excited for something to go a little bit differently and for me to have a new environment to work in, because this one's been stressful. And if you've been feeling that, then I'm with you. And so I like to look forward to whatever is the next change, because at least then there will be change. There will be something new to adapt to or to work with, new resources to show up. So it's just a new chapter to look forward to. And of course, Mars is important because this full moon happening on the 9th of October is in Aries. So Mars rules this full moon from Gemini, where he is slowing down to a crawl, to station retrograde right between these two eclipses. So there's a lot happening all at once at the end of October and beginning of November. So this is a perfect time to be talking about astrology.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for this full moon. And I honestly, just from a very psychic looking at the energy perspective, it feels really nice. It feels like less of the forced to shed energy that we've been going through and more of the, well, fuck it, I'm going to let it go that you want. Like, it's more us directing it and us deciding, no, I don't want that anymore. Instead of the last full moon, which was a lot of surprise, you don't have that anymore, which is not as fun. It's not as fun. And so I'm very much looking forward to that energy, despite not looking forward particularly much for Mars being retrograde. Me and Mars aren't best friends.
Yeah, you're a day child. You're a sun baby.
I'm a sun baby and I'm Venus ruled. So we have stuff. We have a beef, which is fine. But I think it's going to be a really interesting time for things to start moving again, which feels nice. Like, even though Mars is going retrograde, that's still going to cause a lot of change and movement, where the past 2 months everything has felt so stagnant. Even though I've traveled a whole bunch too. Like, I keep looking at the energy, I'm like, but I'm doing all this stuff. Why do I feel stagnant? And I'm like, everybody feels stagnant. Okay, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're just sitting, even though you're not just sitting. So I think that is the thing I'm looking forward to the most, and I hope our listeners will too, because that's awesome.
Yeah. Fun fact about the actual dynamics between the planets, because of course ancient astrologers did go into this planet hates this planet sort of likes that planet, but that planet hates them. Everybody hates Mars except Venus. Venus is the one who's like, I get it, this is who you are, I don't always have to like it, but you can hang with me if you want to. And that's about as good as it gets for Mars. I think maybe we'd be cranky too if that was our lot. But this is an interesting one too, because this full moon, so the moon being in Aries, is also going to be conjunct Chiron in Aries. And this is also going to be opposite Venus. So bringing Venus into this mix, who is, of course, therefore conjunct the sun. So if you think that you have I'm going to do,
I just got a ping when you said therefore. It was Apollo 100% was like the party, and then bounced out. And I just needed to share that really quick. Sorry.
Thank you. As I have my hands midair for a actual visual representation of the sun and the moon. All right, Apollo, I will give you the larger one. So if you're listening to this, imagine holding just two things in your hands on opposite sides of yourself, like I am doing on the video. A full moon, of course, is the sun opposing the moon. So when we talk about the moon conjunct Chiron and Venus opposite the moon, that by default puts Venus opposing the moon just the way the sun is. So those two are, of course, then conjunct, which is really cool this month because Venus is in Libra, which is her sign, which makes her in Chariot, which is a fun word for she and the sun are in the same sign together, and she happens to rule that sign. So the sun's riding shotgun with Venus. Yeah.
I should go buy the food because I thought Krista was still talking. I'm so sorry.
I couldn't help it. I was like, I'm just gonna wait. This is the end of my thought. And do I keep going?
Oh my God.
Usually I'm better at it.
Oh, also it's really peppery, now it's spicy.
So yeah,
fine.
the furthering that
No.
topic.
You don't have to keep going with that. I got something, but it was just like, okay, I'll listen to the rest of Krista's thought, and then I thought it would be longer. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the whole Venus and Chariot thing. That feels awesome.
Mhm. You're
Having
going
to
to
be
like
in
it at the
Libra.
end of the month. Venus and the sun will conjoin and have their Kazemi moment, which is when Kazemi Khan is happening. That's the Kazemi Khan is referencing on October
Nice.
21st and 22nd.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I also just love Libra season. Libra
Yeah.
rising.
See, it's my 12th house season, so I never know what's going to happen, and I'm always just a little bit like, it's when the seasonal like sadness kind of starts setting in for me, so I start relying on my baking shows.
Nice. I'm always like, yay, it's fall. Let's go do things. Like I go very aesthetic with it. I love all of the like, it's not too cold up here that I need a puffy jacket, but it's like still cold enough that I can wear my
All you
hoodies,
need
which I
is a
have
light jacket.
many of. Yeah, all you need is a light jacket. Except it's the opposite. It's fall, not spring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm thrilled about Libra season, even though stuff is going on weird in the cosmos. I'm thrilled about it. So
I mean,
let's
it's
talk
good
about
stuff.
yeah, it's good stuff. Let's talk about how to prepare for the eclipse season that is coming, though, because it is coming.
Yeah.
Also, this is again, we're doing this whole episode based off of a question in the Patreon. If you guys have questions you want us to answer, if you really want us to or vote on topics, all those different things, Patreon guys, we want you to be there. Yeah, so sorry, I just wanted to clue that in too.
So eclipse season at this point, we're sort of in the middle of a saga of eclipses at this point, which is handy because that gives us something to kind of judge off of from previous experience. Good news, you've experienced these eclipses before, kind of, because last November, actually, I think it was right around Halloween last year, was the first eclipse that took place. The eclipse itself, I believe, was conjunct Algol in Taurus, but these eclipses are in Taurus and Scorpio, as they have been since last November. So if you think about something that started beginning last November in the areas of your life ruled by the signs Taurus and Scorpio, and then look even back to late May and early April, because that's when we had the most recent, before this one, series of eclipses. So we had another plot point in that story unfold. Now that plot will continue to unfold even further. With my regular clients that we meet each other multiple times a year, and I track their transits and what's going on. We actually write their story as it unfolds. It's super fun. I have a check-in with a client today, and we're going to be talking about, hey, this is where you were in November. This is what happened in May. What can we anticipate based on what's going around you that might happen this October, November, and see how it's going for you. And based on how it's been going and the nature and the condition of things in your chart, we can see, is it in your favor? Is it, something that's more of a challenge? How can you feel at your most prepared? So to prepare for eclipses, think about the last year, especially the October, November, and April, May timeframes. Think about the places in your chart that are ruled by Taurus and Scorpio and see what's sort of been unfolding. It'll probably be something that is a drastic or a big beginning and ending of a phase in your life or of something around you. Like suddenly you've decided to move to an entirely different state or country or whatever, or you have a job that's happening, or for a lot of people right now, it's happening in their second and eighth. So you might have financial situations, or even I've experienced a lot of people, of course, eighth house lawsuit situations, not necessarily bad, but other people's resources that are longer term things that change your life in one way or another.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like looking back at those times, and even if you just have a journal session, if you don't even remember what was happening in those times, like ask someone around you because they probably remember better for you. And I always want to just put that out there because I always struggle. Like my brain goes blank whenever it's like, what happened for you around November last year? I'm like, I don't know, Thanksgiving. Like that's what happens every year in November. Like that's the thing that comes up. So if you don't remember, ask the people that you talk to. Like ask them like, hey, do you remember what I was going through? Like I know there was something there, and they will help you. I just highly recommend that. You can also ask your guides genuinely and do like a channel journal session and just be like, hey, what happened for me around this past May? And then start by being like, things I remember from this May are, and even if it was just I remember the weather was like this, and then go from there. It'll just really help you. And then you'll get to those energetic threads and your guides will help you out in that space. I just want to encourage to do that because sometimes it's hard to remember, like genuinely, especially the past 2 years, they've been so intense
And
that
blurry.
a lot of stuff has just been pushed to the side, even though it was an impactful thing. So I just really encourage you to do that, especially leading up to this eclipse season, like get in touch with that so you know what's going on.
Yeah. And it's also helpful if you are someone who, like, I'm not a big journaling about my feelings person every morning. Sometimes I sit down and I have like a come to journal moment. But it's, thank you, Emily. But it also is helpful for, I'm going to do a shameless plug for a product that I use, but I'm not represented by. There's a planner called the Honeycomb Planner, and it will show you the transits of that day, the transits of your perfected Time Lord, and the transits that are personal to you. So you'll be able to say, I go through every morning, I bullet journal what happened the previous day, and I highlight the transits that are likely associated with that. You don't even need to do that, but you'll have what happened and the transits that were going on. And then just by association and deduction, you'll be able to say, oh, wow, when Mercury does something, it tends to associate with this. You won't need to know astrology. You'll be able to just say, cat equals yarn ball. So that's a really bad example.
Just
but
one thing, it was cute. I liked it. It's actually, I don't know why this is important to share, but I think maybe it'll help somebody. My dad is bless you. My dad is
it's not in the room, but
yeah, he's not in the room. That was my husband. He has a book calendar. So like a calendar that is in like a book, and it's not so much like a planner at all. It's literally just a calendar. But it's like 3 days per page or whatever it is. And it's always the Far Side comics. It's been the Far Side comics my entire life. Every calendar he has is a Far Side calendar. But everything we do as a family and every major thing that happens in the world, he writes a line and the date next to that on that day. So then at the end of the year, like on New Year's every year, basically New Year's Day and the next day, he transfers all the information to his new calendar. So every time he flips a page, he's like, oh, this time in, 2001, we were in Disneyland. And then also like, oh, did you remember this happened and blah, 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 blah. And like has like all the world events and like the big, ones that impacted him, obviously, whatever he decided was impactful. But also just like all of our family trips and stuff. And that is another way to effectively journal. You don't have to do it with the transits. Like if you're just like, this happened on this day, and then just go on about it. It's really cool, honestly. And like, I always know what trips I took when my entire life because my dad will text me about them or what, big thing happened or you name it. But yeah, so if that helps too, if it feels less like journaling that way and more like keeping record, that can also be really helpful.
Yeah. And then when an eclipse does come up and someone says, well, the last time this happened, it was like April 29th, or April 30th, I think. It was the day we launched our website. We launched it the day after. But if something happened on April 29th, you can say, oh, well, now I can go back to April 29th. This happened. And if they say, again, something happened on October 31st last year, then you can say, oh, well, this happened. And then you'll be able to just look at the date, look at the event, and apply it that way. It is very simple that way.
Yeah, it's also kind of cathartic too, like to transfer all those things over to the next calendar, like that kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, we did all this fun stuff and whatever. And he started doing it when me and my sister were born, basically, to make sure that he didn't miss anything. Yeah, and has carried it on since. Well,
that's super cute.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that's another really effective way of doing things. Would be really beneficial. And also I just want to like remind everyone, like the eclipse season is not the boogeyman. Like you're fine. It's gonna be
it could
fine.
be really radically amazing things that happen.
Totally.
Or something that is challenging in the moment and then turns out to be really, really good.
Totally. And people talk about it like it is the boogeyman. Like, oh no, eclipse season is coming.
Well,
I always like
blame the
eclipse
ancients
season.
for that
like
one.
I can't yeah. I like eclipse season genuinely. Like I have no issue with it. I think it's awesome. Even when stuff goes weird, I think it always is it's beneficial. And if anything, it's always a time of a lot of great movement and shifts. And I appreciate that. So you can't do a lot of, moon work, which I love the moon. So that's weird for me. But other than that, yeah, I think it's great. So it's not the boogeyman. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I think I used this analogy before, but the eclipse season is basically there's something being set up in a room where you're not allowed into yet. And you won't be allowed into that room until after eclipse season. And then you can go in, and it could be a surprise party or it could be whatever, but it's just you're not the one doing the decorating. Whereas normally with manifesting by the moon, you would feel more in control of the decorations. This is while you were out. astrology version. If anybody remembers that show.
Well, and I do. And not only that, it's kind of nice to have that surrender and be like, cool, the universe is moving pieces for me right now. I don't have to do it. Like, I don't have to drive this. And I know that's really hard. Like, I have control issues just like everyone else does. So I understand how hard that is, but it's also kind of nice.
It's the construction season of the zodiac.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Love it.
Yeah. Being currently stationed in Pennsylvania, we have, they always say we have 3 seasons. We have winter, more winter, and construction, or some kind of joke that way that I never really mastered.
We have that too. We have 2 seasons. It's winter and road construction, which was weird this year though. There was like no road construction through our entire town for the first time in like given memory. It was very odd. The only road construction happened because they're building a convention center and they need like more space.
Nice. Yeah, our whole city was like, let's do all the roads at the same time so you can't move around. And we're just like, okay, but I want to go see my grandparents. So it's been like, let's go on an adventure and learn more about the back roads of this city, which has been really fun, explaining all the places where I used to go trick-or-treating mostly, which is funny.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Speaking of accident prone though, my trick-or-treating seasons were always pinpointed by, that's where I fell and tore my stockings last year. That's where I fell the year before that. That's where I fell the year before that, because notoriously as a child, I was always falling over. So we learned like, put Krista in a durable costume.
I don't do trick-or-treating. I think I've probably told this story on here before, but it's fucking scary. I never did it. So I've been psychic since I was born, basically, like a lot of intuitive there. So I was really scared of spooky stuff anyway, because it was very real to me, like super real, right? And so my mom had to convince us to go trick-or-treating. And like one year we were finally like, fine. My sister didn't like it either. Honestly, I don't know why she didn't like it, but I didn't like it. And we went to the most brightly lit house on the block. They were the richest house too. Like it was like a multi-mega $1 million mansion, no decorations. My mom's like, it's gonna be great. Like, look, it's fine. You can see the people inside. Everything's gonna be good. We ring the doorbell and a dude in a gorilla suit answers and goes, and then I never ever trick-or-treated again.
Yeah, that happened to me when my parents were like, you should throw a Halloween party, and we promise we won't scare you. And then they did. And yeah, that's a story for another time. But I was 11 and traumatized. Because again, you were here. Fun fact, everybody, Emily was here, last weekend? And my husband, God bless him, he loves horror movies. He also is someone who can't hold images in his head. So it's a lot easier for him to not be afraid, because the minute he's not looking at them anymore, the images go away. For people who have, more clairvoyance, or even just are able to picture things in their head, they don't just go away. They replay for a very long time, and you get scared if you're me, because I can't punch something that I can't actually grab onto. Like if I could act in the moment and do something, it would be fine. But because I can't actually take action, then I get frustrated by the helplessness of it. So that's, to me, like where the fear comes from in a movie. I can't stop it because I just have to watch it happen. And so he turns on Paranormal Activity 4, which is not accurate to how it works, but still creeped me out enough that I wasn't like, I didn't appreciate it. And Emily walks in, and I was so validated by you being there, because you walked in, you saw it, and you're like, oh, heck no, we don't do this. Yeah, someone who understands me. Yeah. Because when you deal with that your whole life, it's like, no, real things do like bug you. So I just prefer not to have that at the top of my mind as I'm trying to go to sleep and fall into dreams. Thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. I was like, no, we're not Paranormal Activity. That's
no,
not a thing.
No. I'll do an actual investigation. I'll deal with actual entities and things. Having to watch it without being able to actually move around and do something, that's torture.
It's true. Like, am I scared of ghosts and stuff in physical spaces? Not so much anymore. Like I used to be. Not anymore. Like now it's like, if it's gonna come near me, like, no, I will tell you to go. Like, you can leave me alone. Like, it's not going to be an issue. But movies are a different story. They're just a different story. Also, power of art, guys.
Yeah.
Our
High
husband.
vibe entertainment or lack
Mhm.
thereof. And for some
Right.
people, I want a disclaimer, for some people that might be high vibe. I think for my
Yeah.
husband, it does translate into a high vibe, processing of emotions that you wouldn't normally get to process in real life. So it gives you that opportunity. Awesome. For me, it was not a high vibe experience.
No, it's no.
Clearly.
Krista also proceeded to get scared when they went downstairs. So
Yeah,
after that,
no, I had to go downstairs into the dark, and all I could picture was the image that they had given just on the screen beforehand. And it was like, I can turn away from where I picture this happening, but that's exactly how it looks when I see something real too. So it's the differentiation for me.
yeah, it's super funny and creepy energy. Okay, cool. So we do have a one question that we're going to answer that came in the Patreon. Again, I'm going to plug Patreon again just because it's super fun for us. Also, there's going to be a really exciting bonus video. So our top tier patrons get a bonus video every month from one of us or both of us. And this one Krista's doing. Talk about it
I'm
because I
super
think it's so
excited.
cool.
Okay, so I'm going to be pulling a charm for. I'm still looking at it. I'm going to maybe do one or two in honor of spooky season. I'm going to do a banishing charm on how to keep away all evil or negative entities, according to the long lost friend, which is one of the most used grimoires in Braucherei. So there's a bunch of Appalachian folk magic charms in there. I will show you how they work. I will probably teach you how to make it. Sometimes there's some stuff that you need to gather that are a little unconventional. Most of them you can get from a craft store. It's really that easy. Braucherei is really great because it was mostly farmers that were just like, what's in my kitchen? How can I use that magically to keep away bad stuff? And that's one of the reasons my earthy self really enjoys this particular type of folk magic. So I'll be doing that. And if you have more interest in Braucherei, let me know. The kind of stuff that you have questions about, I can either address that on my TikTok or through bonus videos here on the podcast. But we'll be having a nice little like keep the bad stuff away video.
Yeah, which I think is so perfect for spooky season. And it's
Yeah.
just cool because it is very much like it's magic without the witchcraft.
Yeah, it's the actual primary grimoire of Braucherei is the Bible, specifically the Psalms. So you end up using those as magic words to channel healing and stuff, which is really cool.
Which is cool. And not saying witchcraft is bad. It's just a different way of doing magic, which I find a lot of value in as many different ways we can do magic as possible. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think in a sense, witchcraft as a term of a practice, it kind of is. Sometimes they were called white witches because they were just mostly it's like how to protect your cattle from being hexed by another witch. It was a big deal to them. Like almost everything is about their farm animals.
I mean, that is a big deal. I want to protect my cattle.
Don't we all?
So the question that we got is basically how if spirit guides can help with health, and specifically it's related to allergies. And we just want to touch on it really quick because our time is getting kind of short here, but short answer is yeah, they totally can. And there's a lot of actually energetic and spiritual stuff that you can do that helps with health things. On an allergy sense specifically, I've shared this on here before, but I cured my allergy to cats through belief work. And I'm not saying that's how all allergies work at all, because that isn't necessarily all the time, but it is something that you can absolutely lessen through the use of belief work, through asking your spirit guides for help, those sorts of things. You can totally do that, and it can be really beneficial.
Well, and if you think about it, you can go at it from a planetary perspective because each thing that you might be allergic to is governed by a certain planet. So astrologers, especially in the medical astrology community, which is a thing and it's pretty cool, they can look at it and say, wow, do you have problems with this? Do you have problems with that? And you can trace it back to certain allergies might also be associated with transits, or just, other way of saying it, with events that happened likely in your childhood that created some kind of trauma, ergo belief. And that belief leads to an aversion to things that either were present around the same time. So sometimes it could be, it was fall, now you're allergic to the fall allergies as compared to the spring ones, or just any little thing. I'm working with my husband right now on, he has several allergies. We've worked through, and some of them have returned, but we've worked through like lactose intolerance and things with cheeses that are much better now than they used to be. His poor Gemini belly having a lot of like intestinal or gastrointestinal irritability is a possibility for a lot of people with Gemini because there's all of that stuff going on in the gut, which Mercury and Gemini rules the chest and lungs. Then you get Virgo down in the gut. So mercurial people might have nervous issues or things associated with the stomach. And that's always fun to explore. So digestion definitely falls into that.
I also highly recommend, like, ask your body why it's allergic to this. Like, I know that sounds kind of silly sometimes. You're like, what do you mean? My body's not going to answer. It's totally going to answer, and it's going to answer differently than your brain answers. So your body has its own separate consciousness from you. You communicate your body. Your body is your friend that you have like the most intimate partnership with this entire life. So even if it's just a journal session of like, why is it beneficial to be allergic to this thing? And just write for a while and see if that comes out, or walk around, pace and narrate to a recording device why it would be beneficial to have this thing, or ask your body out loud, be like, all right, body, we're doing a Q&A. Like, why, what good things does this allergy give me? Why do I feel like it's necessary to have this allergy? Why do you feel like it's necessary to have this allergy? And that's going to help you see where those beliefs might be, why it has been serving you. And then you can reassure your body that it's not serving you anymore, or that you don't need it to be like this. You're not. And sometimes I feel like this comes up with astrology stuff, especially when it's talking about health astrology. Just because you have planets or transits or placements or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're stuck there. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, this is me forever. I'm a mercurial person, so I have digestive issues. Like, that is not a requirement. That's just giving you some insight, so that you can be like, oh, maybe that's where that is. And how can I now grow past that, work around that? Because now I have the understanding and the depth there to make forward motion happen. And so, yeah, I mean, you can absolutely work on your allergies, work on things and have them go away, or health stuff at least alleviate or help the symptoms or those sorts of things through spiritual work, for sure.
And also to build off of your point with astrology, if you think about health astrology being a relationship or a synastry between your body and the food that you take in, or your body and the elements that you surround yourself or take in life, it's just like synastry with friends. You're born with a certain standard of being or a certain predisposition, and then you meet people who fill in the gaps that you might have, and you fill in their gaps. So if you have this certain predisposition to foods or allergies, there are likely things that can fill in those gaps as well, as far as vitamins, minerals, habits, treatments, whatever.
Also, it's important to note too, sometimes it's just you're getting something cut out of your life that you don't need anymore. Like, for example, I can no longer eat eggs. Gemini, my gallbladder decided to die last year, and I can no longer eat eggs. And I was a vegetarian already, so now I'm a vegetarian again. Plus, I can't eat eggs, so now I'm like almost vegan in a lot of ways, and it's been a lot healthier for my body. And I miss eggs. I'm sad about it, but I get why my body was like, hey, like, we'll cut more of this out because this is the way you need to start living, and pushing me into that direction. And maybe someday I'll get back to it. I haven't ever even done any work on it too much because I know why, because I asked, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? And my body answered basically. And I was like, well, fine, I accept that then, let's do this. So there's other things like that sometimes can come up as well that I just want to highlight too. Sometimes there's other reasons, and it's not just you coming in.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, in the case of the person who asked this question, they'd prefer to be out hiking rather than be dealing with allergies. So I get it for that. So it's just a matter of, like, again, tapping into your body, asking, why are we feeling this way? Why shouldn't we be out hiking right now? What am I benefiting from avoiding that? And then you can decide from there, excuse me, with how you want to either remedy it or live alongside it.
I fully agree. So, that is all the information we have for you today. We covered a lot of stuff in our little bit of time here. We really appreciate all of you listening. Thank you so much. It was really fun to get some of your feedback on the last episode. That was we both enjoyed that quite a bit. Remember, not the boogeyman coming up. Embrace this full moon though, because it does feel like a full moon where you have a lot of in charge energy going on, which is nice. And it's just going to feel really nice to be like, what don't I want? Goodbye. And that will feel good. So just lean in on that. Again, the Patreon information is either in our comment or our underneath the caption, I guess, on YouTube. I don't know what it's called.
Description?
My brain's blinking. Yeah. The description. Yeah. On
The
YouTube.
description.
Or it's in our show notes on any other podcast platform. If you can't find it though, it is in both of our link trees as well. Also, you can email us if you do have, questions about anything to do with the Patreon or anything to do with the podcast, anything like that. forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com. We're here for you. And yeah, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. We appreciate you. And we hope that you take this full moon and take this week and go make some magic.
That was perfect on my end. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It was perfect on my end. You guys, let us know.
Yeah, it was entirely delayed. So
I hope you were watching the video because both of us are like, it could have worked.
We'll see if it goes. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.